Representative here present, representative of the Right Honourable Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Doing it with him there, not only motto,
Pleasure to be part of this auspicious gathering of the 2025 African Chiefs of Defense Staff Summit. This year's theme couldn't be timelier. Contemporary threats to peace and security directly affect not only the stability of our nations, but also the sustainability of vital resources, which remain the backbone of our economic growth. Therefore, this gathering is a strategic avenue to strengthen military chiefs of defense staff support and collaboration across the continent and to develop strategic security architecture that are fit for purpose and in line with our continental aspirations for growth, development, and security of lives and property. Security forms a key pillar of the energy business and therefore plays a very important and strategic role in achieving our national, regional, continental energy security goal. I'm speaking as the head of the largest national oil company on the continent, the NNPC Limited. We have seen the benefits of the collaboration within the security space with significant improvements in our operating environment. The dilapidating impact of crude theft, low pipeline availability, and attacks are issues that have becoming stories of the past for us. And this has come from the immense and intentional efforts of our government security and intelligence agencies across the nation and in particular within the Niger Delta. Today, I can proudly report to you all that our pipelines and terminal receipts of crude oil that was somewhere as low as 20–30% some periods back, we are attaining close to 100% due to the support of the security forces and intelligence agencies. Again, this achievement would not have been possible without the professionalism, the discipline, the collaborative spirit of our defense and security institutions. We at NNPC Limited hold this partnership in the highest regard. We also know that crude theft and its attendant illegal activities are by no means a purely localized occurrence. Rather, these operations involve sophisticated international syndicates that take advantage of gaps within the states, national, regional, and continental security architecture to conduct their illicit activities. It is therefore imperative that forums such as these are encouraged with a view to strengthen strategic, tactical, and operational activities within the continent. Africa must take its destiny into its hands. and chart a collective way forward that meets the goals and aspirations of our people. As stakeholders within the energy industry, and in light of growing geopolitical tension around the world, NNPC Limited wishes to restate our commitment to supporting the effort of the various security agencies and intelligence agencies, and willingness to collaborate and cooperate with the military and intelligence agencies. This support and collaboration have been demonstrated, as mentioned earlier, with our successes in industry-wide security architecture here in Nigeria, which has greatly reduced the incidence of sabotage, vandalism, crude theft, illegal refineries, illegal bunkering, and piracy. We envision, by virtue of this gathering and the initiatives to be developed, an expanded architecture that takes into account the activities on a regional and continental level, with all the enabling tools, policies, and technologies to allow seamless synergies and collaboration across borders. So, as this summit deliberates in deepening strategic defense collaboration across Africa, let me assure you that the oil and gas sector in Nigeria stands ready to complement this effort, as we eagerly articulate the benefits to be accrued for the ultimate upliftment of all the stakeholders as citizenry across our borders. Together, we can safeguard Africa's resources, ladies and gentlemen. We can reinforce the peace and create an enabling environment for prosperity of our people. Do accept assurance of our highest regard on behalf of NNPC Limited and the Nigerian industry. Thank you very much.
ECOWAS President and other heads of regional.
It is both an honor and a duty to address this distinguished gathering of Africa's military leadership at this historic event. Today, we are joined by some of the continent's finest men and women who continue to stand guard to protect Africa's peace and security. This summit is more than meeting. It is a bold statement of our collective commitment to building a safer, stronger, more united Africa. Our continent is facing serious and evolving security threats from terrorism and insurgency to cyber attack and maritime security. These challenges are complex, transnational, and increasingly asymmetric. Tackling them required not just national resilience, but also strong continental cooperation. Today, we take an important step forward. We affirm that Africa's security must be driven by African solutions, African leadership, and African unity. Nigeria has always played a leading role in promoting regional peace and stability. Our armed forces have been actively involved in peacekeeping, counter-terrorism, and humanitarian missions across Africa and beyond. We remain committed to strengthening our defense partnership, both bilateral and multilateral, to support peace, development, and democratic values. This summit reflects our belief that no single country can secure the continent alone. We must work together, sharing intelligence, aligning doctrine, and building trust among defense institutions. The future of warfare is digital, fast-moving, and unpredictable. As defense leaders, we must embrace innovation, we must invest in cyber defense, artificial intelligence, and indigenous military technologies. Africa must not just keep up with global trends, we must take the lead in shaping them. Let this summit serve as a platform for defense industrial collaboration, joint training, and strategic planning. Let us build defense institutions that are agile, accountable, and ready for challenge ahead. Going forward, I strongly advocate for this summit to become a regular event. Let it be institutionalized as an annual platform for strategic dialogue, coordination, professional exchange. Let us, from working groups and task forces, to sustain the momentum beyond this gathering. Let us build a continent where peace is permanent and our armed forces stand as a symbol of pride, professionalism, and progress. I must also acknowledge and appreciate the President and the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for his outstanding leadership and continued support to the Armed Forces of Nigeria. I also commend the Chief of Defense Staff, General C.J. Musa, for his exceptional leadership and foresight in organizing this inaugural African Chief of Defense Staff Summit. His commitment to regional cooperation, operational excellence, and continental security has set a new standard in defense diplomacy. The success of this summit is a testament to his professionalism and dedication to unity among African defense institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Ministry of Defense and the Government of the Republic of Nigeria, I thank you for your presence, your partnership, and your dedication to Africa's security. I wish you all productive and fruitful deliberation. Thank you, and may God bless the African continent.
Part of this very timely, very special, and indeed historic event of the coming together of the African defense chiefs here in Abuja, Nigeria. For those of us who have lived through pre- and post-independence of African nations, this event conjures emotion as well as nostalgia. In this regard, we recall vividly how in the late 50s, the late President Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana articulated his vision of an African collective security system through the creation of an African High Command. African High Command is the highest form of strategic defense cooperation in the continent, were it to have been established. Nkrumah's vision was further developed here in Nigeria, precisely in Lagos, in 1964, at the organization of African Unity Council of Ministers meeting, where the creation of an African High Command was high on its agenda. I draw attention to this vision, not just because of nostalgia, because as the saying goes, you can't know where you are going unless you know where you are coming from. The translation of that vision, however, into concrete reality has eluded us in the continent. This is largely due to the fact that we have to first secure our respective countries before we can then, in the concentric circles of defense policy, secure our respective regions as we strive to secure our continent. It's therefore very symbolic that Nigeria is hosting this conference of African defense chiefs today, the very first of its kind in 2025, some 61 years on. May I therefore congratulate Mr. President, His Excellency, Alhaji Bello Matawale GCFR, for facilitating this crucial African summit. Indeed, securing Nigeria has made it possible for the country to be at the forefront of securing West Africa. We're all aware of the creation of ECOWAS and its defense instrument ECOMOG. Joined by Ghana and other member states of ECOWAS, ECOMOG was a trailblazer in the security and defense of the sub-region of West Africa. And through the instrumentality of ECOMOG, the Nigerian Armed Forces have made tremendous impact on the region and continue to do so. I therefore salute our chief hosts of this event, General Christopher Musa, and all the service chiefs for their focus and dedication to the peace and security of the most populous sub-region in Africa, and for their foresight in convening this inaugural African Chiefs of Defense Summit. The theme of the summit, Combating Contemporary Threats to Regional Peace and Security in Africa, the role of strategic defense collaboration, resonates strongly with many African scholars, security experts, and policymakers alike. Neither has there been lack of practical steps to combat insecurity in Africa through collective approach. The African Peace and Security Architecture and a supportive standby force have been created under the auspices of the African Union, and that African standby force was actually supposed to have become operational by 2015. The African Union Agenda 2063 emphasized silencing the guns by the year 2020, which has passed, and now shifted to 2030. Still, the guns are still blazing, as Sudan, South Sudan, the Sahel, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Southern Africa continue to witness violent conflict. According to some research work done by the African Research Network for Regional and Global Governance Innovation with headquarters in Savannah Center for Diplomacy, Democracy and Development here in Abuja, there are now over 1,000 insurgency groups in Africa, and the number keeps rising. And the majority of our Regional Economic Commission are actually dealing with banditry and terrorism and other forms of insurgency. So regional economic communities, what's supposed to be primarily about economic integration, has to, of course, devote a lot of its attention to issues of dealing with banditry, terrorism, and insurgency. Let me conclude by expressing the strongest conviction that Africa's collective security can only be enhanced with active, practical, and proactive collaboration at the regional and continental levels. There must be synergy in military cooperation, promotion of common training, promotion of common doctrinal concept, sharing of intelligence, the interoperability of armaments, but also capacity building, particularly in airlifting, all of which are essential for operationalization of the African standby force. We must also upgrade and strengthen our defense industries and own our technologies in order to avoid control from external forces. Finally, this summit, this historic summit, the very first of its kind, of African defense chiefs, should not yet be another talk shop. We must strive at concrete and realistic solutions to combat old as well as new threats to peace and security in Africa. Africa must design, own, and build a security architecture that guarantees our sovereignties and guarantees human security in all of its dimensions. I thank you for your kind attention, and I wish all of us fruitful deliberation. Thank you.
Her Excellency Amina Mohammed, #2 World Civil Servant.
You is born of a woman, unless you want to challenge that. But secondly, the burden on which women face, whether they lose their husband's ultimate sacrifice in conflict, or that they are the ones that lose their lives, they are the ones that lose their children, they bear the greatest brunt of all the conflicts that we have today in the world. And so for them, I think they deserve their place here today and recognition. Last but not least, in his 7 to 10 minutes, David Wiseman, thank you for talking to us about the day after. Often that is forgotten, that those that manage to go home also have to live a life and heal and be part very much of the societies that they left to serve. And so thank you for reminding us. Excellencies, Excellence, it is an honor to join you for this first ever African Chiefs of Defense Staff Summit. And I'd like to thank General Musa and the government of Nigeria for your warm invitation and your welcome to the United Nations. I speak as a proud African woman, as someone who has seen the cost of insecurity in families and communities across our continent, from Boko Haram in Maiduguri to the RSF in Sudan and to the conflict in Ethiopia and more recently in Gaza. These gatherings mark the birth, this one in particular, marks the birth of a new era in African security cooperation at such a critical moment. It is the first of its kind to represent the boots on the ground, a rare opportunity to connect their realities with the policy decisions that shape our continent's security. Nearly 1 in every 5 people on Earth call Africa home. Each one deserves a life in safety and in dignity. And that means protecting civilians, respecting borders, and standing by the principles of international law and the UN Charter. Above all, it calls for a united approach against our common threats. We know that Africa is at the epicenter of global terrorism deaths, and today Professor Gambari has told us just how many of those insurgency groups are on the continent. Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State affiliates coordinate across our continent, and the attacks in West Africa coastal countries surging 250% in 2 years. Violent extremism, once thought to be history, is back again in the Lake Chad Basin and in Somalia and beyond. By last year's end, over 14,000 schools were closed in the Central Sahel due to the conflict. Aside from the children who are forcibly recruited, we see young people who are drawn by fear, by money, by a false promise of belonging. And when young people see no path to education or to justice and a future, extremist propaganda finds an audience, and we risk losing an entire generation. In this new era of technology, where it should be advancing as a human endeavor, these groups are using new technologies like unmanned aerial systems and improvised explosive devices to wreak havoc. We cannot afford to be bystanders. Africa must take ownership, must be proactive, and shape how these tools will be used. Cyberspace today is now a battle space. Elections are manipulated, institutions undermined, lies are spread until neighbor turns against neighbor. And we have seen this before. Once it was a radio carrying messages that ignited genocide. Today it is social media amplifying hate at terrifying speed. Artificial intelligence is already transforming the landscape of security. Today we do have AI tools that are helping countries suffering from conflict and insecurity, identifying food insecurity, predicting displacement caused by climate shocks, even detecting and clearing landmines. Soon they could help us to spot patterns of unrest before violence erupts. Sadly, the same technology that offers solutions also carries profound risks. AI's expansion into security systems raises fundamental questions about human rights, dignity, and the rule of law, from autonomous border surveillance to predictive policing. It creates fertile ground for misunderstanding, miscalculation, and mistakes. AI-enabled cyber attacks could cripple entire infrastructure and paralyze essential services. Algorithms today are already being used to make life or death decisions. And to turn to another challenge, climate change. It is also reshaping the geography of security across our continent, fueling food scarcity, endangering our people. Extreme heat, sea level rise, shifting rainfall patterns are driving displacement, exacerbating resource competition, and fueling instability. Shrinking water levels in the Lake Chad Basin have displaced over 3 million people. I saw this firsthand when I was Minister of Environment. The evidence is overwhelming, and it is destabilizing our world. The UN Security Council has acknowledged that climate change is a threat multiplier that fuels conflict, displaces populations, and undermines state stability. The International Court of Justice recently recognized climate change as an urgent and existential threat to our world. The IPCC has left no room of doubt. Africa is one of the most exposed regions in the world to climate change. The rippling effect is rising displacement and migration, putting food systems and infrastructure under severe pressure and creating more opportunities for instability and exploitation. The result speaks volumes. Climate change is a clear and present danger to peace. Our seas are also becoming a new front line. Organized crime on our waters is feeding violence on our land. In the Gulf of Guinea, piracy, illicit trade are funding terrorism. In the Red Sea, maritime insecurity is undermining stability far beyond the shoreline. Excellencies, Excellence, each of these threats all share one characteristic. They are transnational. Our response must be that too. When we act in isolation, we hand our adversaries their greatest advantage, our division. Regional cooperation is the linchpin of African security and defense, but we also note that this is easier said than done. Defense collaboration is not simple. We are talking about 54 countries, each with their own policies, their histories, their priorities, and their difficulties. This makes it all the more remarkable that though the complexity and diversity, African forces find ways to act together, and you have. From the African Union's peace support operations to the Algeria African Center for Study and Research on Terrorism, Cape Verde Center for Security and Transnational Organized Crime, and Cameroon's International School for Security Forces, amongst many. The African Union deploys peace support operations where others can and will not. The multinational Joint Task Force in the Lake Chad Basin coordinates regional efforts against Boko Haram. ECOWAS in West Africa and IGAD in the Horn are coordinating troops, logistics, and political engagement. The G5 Sahel and the Accra Initiative have also played key roles. But too often, such initiatives are being held back by mistrust, tensions, gaps, and in some cases, sadly, undermined by the international community. Trust is not built overnight, but without it, every effort to strengthen our partnerships and our response in defense of our people will fall short. Collaboration must be targeted and intentional, and I see 3 opportunities where our unity can tip the balance. First is resources. Pooling our budgets for joint responses makes us stronger than scattering the spending. We proved this when Nigeria helped in the Gambia and Liberia. We must find that spirit again. At the same time, we need to think bigger about financing. National security budgets must be complemented by international support. We can leverage the prevention components of other budgets to reinforce stability and reduce the costs of conflict before they spiral. Cutting off illicit financing is part of this battlefront. Yaba's anti-money laundering work and the cooperation through the multi-joint task force and the Lake Chad Basin Commission are vital to choke off the money flows that sustain conflict from outside of the continent. Second, intelligence and innovation. We need the right tools and mapping in place to plan and to drive strategy at scale. Reinforcing the Accra Initiative, the ECOWAS Standby Force, and giving the Joint Threat Fusion and Analysis Cell the support it needs to ensure data become decisions. The same applies at sea, joint patrols that make the Yaoundé architecture real protection for people and infrastructure. And innovation must be part of our defense, collaborating on AI from drones to cyber tools, and building on African Union's AI strategy can help us to set common standards to keep technology serving people. And third, people and partnerships. Our continent is full of military and academic centers of excellence. We need to harness this strategy and this training capacity, use it more efficiently, and deploy it where it is most needed. And we must unite the public and the private sectors. Soldiers learning side by side with engineers, technicians, innovators, regular fora with business to share cutting-edge knowledge. This is how Africa's own labs and companies can power our security future. In turn, the private sector benefits from access to credit to grow their companies and to feed their bottom line. It creates an enabling environment for young people to strive for their futures. Excellencies, Excellence, history has shown that African military cooperation and collaboration has already proven itself on the world stage. 3 decades ago, Ghana and Nigeria pioneered ECOMOG in Liberia when regional interventions were untested. African military diplomacy stepped up into breach when others hesitated. From those West African origins and beyond, Rwanda transformed from recovery to becoming the #2 global contributor for peacekeeping forces. Today, 9 of the world's top 15 contributors of UN peacekeeping are African nations, African troops, all active in Somalia, in CAR, and the DRC. So we are not only recipients of support from the international community, We are contributors of that support. And without African leadership, there would be no effective peacekeeping. Now, peacekeeping is entering a new era. However, this new era is facing headwinds. Politically, the UN Security Council is deadlocked, and political support is eroding. Meanwhile, external actors are pursuing their own agendas on African soil, complicating and exacerbating our security landscape. Financially, missions are now underfunded. This makes Resolution 2719 of Somalia so vital. With this resolution, and the UN Security Council acknowledged a simple truth: African crises demand African leadership, backed by global financial support for African solutions to succeed. This era, a new era of peacekeeping, also brings with it an opportunity for a new face. That face has to be younger, more diverse in people and skills that will work with communities on the front and the day after. And that includes, Excellencies, women. On the day after, women are the anchors of recovering and helping to rebuild trust, to heal communities long after the guns fall silent. The day after also demands something else from us as military leaders: justice and accountability. They matter the day after. Everyone deserves their day in court. Even accused terrorists, as difficult as this may be able to accept, they must face justice in a court of law. And let us perhaps remind ourselves that terrorists are not born. They are our children. They are the young people who have gone astray, badly astray. And it is our duty to bring them back out from the cold into building their nations and not destroying them. These are some of the issues that international community will raise, and as leaders, you will have to be in a position that you can defend. Excellencies, let us be reminded why we need peace for development. Without it, neither the Sustainable Development Goals nor Agenda 2063 can be achieved. Farmers cannot farm without security. Energy systems cannot be built without being protected. Every school, every hospital depends on security. And we cannot have our children, our girls, in fear of kidnapping. Without security, development is impossible. Without development, security cannot hold. And lasting peace must be built upon both. Both are the foundation of our agendas 2030 and Africa's vision for Agenda 2063. They connect the dots between prosperity, good governance, and peace. Food security, education, health, decent work, social protection, green technology, and resilience, justice and institutions, and people must be able to trust in. We know that every additional year of schooling reduces the likelihood of a young person joining armed groups by up to 13%. This evidence begs the question: how do we invest in peace? Is it just military spending? Is it development spending? Is it both? That is the discussion that we will need to have in this room and beyond. And it means tackling root causes. It means democracy that is robust and representative, not on constitutional changes dressed up as solutions. While this might seem legitimate in many eyes, in the longer term, democracy and by extension security will be weakened. Instead, strong institutions underpinned by strong democracies and strong security apparatus are the safeguard against instability. Let's give some deep thought to the resources that we are allocating to achieve stability. Last year, the world spent $2.7 trillion on the military, more than at any point in the history of the world. Yet insecurity has not diminished. In fact, conflicts are spreading, not shrinking. At the same time, the world fell short by $4 trillion each year for just basic development needs. $4 trillion missing for school, for jobs, for clinics. That imbalance raises a clear question: what kind of spending truly delivers the peace you are willing to fight to protect? This is at the heart of the African Union's call to silence the guns, because silencing the guns is not just about weapons laid down. It is about investing in people, tackling root causes, and creating societies where stability is built on justice, opportunity, and trust. Success will only be possible if we create the fiscal space for investing in people and stability. And so we do need in Africa a fairer chance and a fairer finance. debt relief, affordable credit, and a global system that works for Africa is what we need today. We need a global financial architecture that reflects today's realities. And we need African countries strong, but more importantly, united in calling for these changes. Our chiefs, excellencies, friends, strategic defense collaboration is not a slogan. It is the bridge between the threats that we face today and the peace that we promise tomorrow. I've seen the challenge, I know you have. I've also seen what's possible when we find common ground. The outcome of this week must be heard beyond this room. It must be carried into every international forum where decisions on defense are being made on our behalf. That's how we will shape Africa's security on Africa's terms. But reshaping security also means changing mindsets. We must see women not only as victims of war, but as partners in peace. And just as women are the bedrock of peace in our homes, they must be a part of the search for peace on the war front. This is not about winning wars, it is about winning peace, and is about doing it together. As Nelson Mandela Madiba once said, "I dream of the realization of the unity of Africa, whereby its leaders combine in their efforts to solve the problems of this continent." That dream calls on us to act with resolve, with courage, with trust, and a shared purpose to safeguard the future of Africa, the future of Africans that we want. I thank you.
But all of the world, as the United Nations Deputy Secretary General, thank you, and then take the rear end in the back so that we're done. Your Excellency, Mr. Vice President, representative of the President, we thank you for your patience.